Yeah, it's good for a long time.
Here we go. I call this meeting of your Newark City Council to order. Janine, please call
Mr. Rath?
Here.
Mr. Ryan?
Here.
Mr. Barker?
Here.
Ms. Blind? Here. Mr. Shu?
here.
Mr. Harris?
Here.
Mr. Halper?
Here.
Mr. Labutus?
Here.
Mr. Lang? Mr. Marmy?
Present.
We have almost everyone here present and including Mr. Martin. Are we ready on that? Or do you want me to wait a minute? Slight technical difficulty. Hang on just a second.
You're good.
We're good? Yeah. Next on the agenda, we have the invocation by Mr. Harris. Please stand, Mr. Harris.
Let's bow our heads. Dear Heavenly Father, Lord, we thank you for this beautiful day you allowed us to live. We thank you for the great country that we live in. We ask you, Lord, as we conduct business, just help us to do what's right and do your will. We ask you, Lord, to watch over, protect us as we leave here tonight. Keep us from all harm and safety. We thank you for our safety forces, our firemen and policemen, and all our city employees for all they do for us in the city. We ask you all these things in Jesus' name we pray. Amen.
Thank you, Mr. Harris. Next, we have the Pledge of Allegiance led by Chief McKee.
I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Good job, Chief. Hopefully you didn't get that wrong. Next on the agenda, we have caucus. That's the time for council to discuss anything pertaining to the agenda tonight. Do we have anything? Mr. Martin?
President, like to make a motion to excuse Mr. Lang.
Motion. Excuse Mr. Lang by Mr. Martin, second by Mr. Barker. All in favor, signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Both same sign. He is excused. Mr. Martin?
Also, I'd like to invoke Rule 11 on ordinance 23-31 and 23-52.
Thank you, Mr. Martin. Janine, would you read 23-31?
Ordinance number 23-31 by Mr. Marmy, Mr. Shute, an ordinance accepting the fact finder's report received in connection with the collective bargaining negotiations between the city of Newark and Fraternal Order of Police Local 127 Blue and Gold units and recommendations contained therein and declaring an emergency.
23-31 is accepting, 23-32 is rejecting, so you can't vote for both of them. So, is there any discussion on 23-31?
Mr. President.
Mr. Marmy?
Make a motion to adopt ordinance 23-31.
Motion to adopt by Mr. Marmy, second by Mr. Barker. Any discussion on 23-31? Seeing none, Janine, please call the roll to vote.
Mr. Rath?
Yes.
Mr. Ryan?
Yes.
Mr. Barker?
Yes.
Ms. Blind? Yes. Mr. Shu?
Yes.
Mr. Harris?
Yes.
Mr. Halter?
Yes.
Mr. Labutus?
Yes.
Mr. Lang? Mr. Marmy?
Yes.
23-31 passes 9-0. And Janine, would you read 23-32?
Ordinance number 23-32 by Mr. Marmy, an ordinance rejecting the fact finder's report received in connection with the collective bargaining negotiations between the city of Newark and the Fraternal Order of Police Local 127 Blue and Gold units and recommendations contained therein and declaring an emergency.
Further reading of 23-32, what is your wish? Seeing nothing, that will not be voted on since it has not been adopted. So 23-31 will be yes. Next, we have the minutes of our July 5th, 2023 meeting. Motion to approve those. Motion by Mr. Labutus, second by Mr. Hauser. All those in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Both same sign. That passes. There are no appointments this evening. There are reports from standing committee, one from finance, one from service, and one from economic development. Without objection, those will be received and filed. Two reports from city officials this evening. We have one from city auditor Ryan Bubb, the operating report for the period ending June 30th, 2023. One from Brenda Cooper, tax administrator's office, income tax revenue reports for the period ending June 30th, 2023. Without objection, those will be received and filed. Next, under communications, we have a public hearing tonight. But first, we need to discuss ordinance 23-21.
Ordinance number 23-21 by Mr. Marmy, Mr. Barker, Mr. Shute, Mr. Labutus, Mr. Rath, Ms. Blind, Mr. Harris, and Mr. Ryan. An ordinance creating a downtown Newark's tax increment financing incentive District 1 and downtown Newark tax increment financing District 2, declaring improvements to the parcels within the incentive districts to be a public purpose and exempt from real property taxation, requiring the owners of those parcels to make service payments in lieu of taxes, establishing a municipal public improvement tax increment equivalent fund for the deposit of those service payments, specifying the public infrastructure improvements to be made that directly benefit the parcel and declaring an emergency.
23-21 was tabled to a date certain, which was tonight. What is your wish?
Mr. President,
Mr. Marmy?
just so everyone is aware of kind of what's going on here. This is a tax increment financing. We have to do things in a particular order. The public hearing needs to take place this evening. We then, as a council, cannot vote on it for a certain number of days. However, the way that the original ordinance came forward, there were some changes that had to be made. We made some changes to accommodate the local schools. And it was things that were fair, and we just wanted to clean up some language. So what I'm going to do is offer an amendment now so that it's cleaned up before the public hearing. So then the actual legislation that we're going to vote on August the 21st will already be in place. So I'm going to make a motion to amend ordinance 23-21 to ordinance 23-21A.
Second. Second by Mr. Barker. It's in everyone's packet, by the way. Is there any discussion on 23-21A? Being none, Janine, please call the roll and vote on the amendment.
Mr. Rath?
Yes.
Mr. Ryan?
Yes.
Mr. Barker?
Yes.
Ms. Blind?
Yes.
Mr. Shute?
Yes.
Mr. Harris?
Yes.
Mr. Hauser?
Yes.
Mr. Labutus?
Yes.
Mr. Lang? Mr. Marmy?
Yes.
23-21 has been amended to 23-21A.
Mr. President, I would like to make a motion to table 23-21A to August the 21st.
Second. Motion by Mr. Marmy, second by Mr. Barker. I think we can do that with a voice vote, right, to table it?
Right, we want to have a public hearing first.
We're going to table this first, and then we'll do it. All in favor of tabling 23-21A, signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Opposed, same sign. That passes. Okay, 23-21A now has been tabled for a month. Next, we have a public hearing on 23-21A. I'm going to open this public hearing for comments. Janine, if you'll read 23-21A.
Ordinance number 23-21A by Mr. Marmy, Mr. Barker, Ms. Blind, Mr. Shute. An ordinance creating a downtown Newark tax increment financing incentive District 1 and downtown Newark tax increment financing District 2, declaring improvements to the parcels within the incentive districts to be a public purpose and exempt from real property taxation, requiring the owners of those parcels to make service payments in lieu of taxes, establishing a municipal public improvement tax increment equivalent fund for the deposit of those service payments, specifying the public infrastructure improvements to be made that directly benefit the parcel, and declaring an emergency.
Again, this is a public hearing. This will not be voted on until August 21st. Is there anyone here that would like to speak for or against? Mr. Motter?
Thank you, Mr. President. Good evening to all members of the council, and also anyone from the public is here to maybe learn and ask questions about this tax increment financing in District 1 and 2, and certainly anybody watching via social media. My name is Mark Motter. I'm the Economic Director and Community Development Director for the City of Newark. This tax increment financing legislation that is before you and the public for discussion is really a result of the positive economic impact that downtown Newark has experienced with its tremendous revitalization over these past 10 or so years. Newark has become a destination for visitors to experience and visit. It's a hotspot for businesses, investors, and developers, and a place to call home for residents living in our downtown. As a result, Newark is growing in all these economic areas And we need to be able to meet the needs necessary to sustain and promote that growth. The TIF, tax increment financing, is an economic development tool, not a tax. And I'd like to repeat that. A TIF is an economic development tool, not a tax. And it will help us meet our expenses to expand our infrastructure for future economic growth. A TIF does not create any new taxes. And again, it is not a tax. A TIF is an economic development tool that can only redirect any future tax increases that are assessed by the county auditor. Here's an example. Hopefully you're all familiar that we are in the midst of renovating that beautiful arcade building that we have here in our town. Once the arcade renovation is completed, the county auditor will reassess the value of that property. Any increased assessed value done by the auditor that generates additional property taxes over and above the current taxes, 75% of that can be redirected to the TIF. Those redirected TIF funds, which are now called payments in lieu of taxes, will go towards paying the debt obligation to build a parking garage. The parking garage is a necessity for future development to continue. We need a place for additional residents, business owners, employees, and customers of those new businesses to park. For a developer to come in and invest and create new living and workspaces, they need assurances that parking will be available to accommodate their clients and end users. Without those assurances, the risk is too great for investment. In addition, we need to have ample parking to accommodate municipal employees, customers of the City Hall building, and other downtown businesses and patrons of those businesses. For these reasons, and for the continued growth and prosperity of Newark's downtown, I would recommend that this TIF be given careful consideration for approval. Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Vaughn. Mr. Vaughn? You just give us your name and address for the record.
My name's Tom Blind. I live at 980 Jonathan Lane. I think most of the folks in the upper deck know I'm on the school board. If anyone didn't know, the school board passed our resolution by unanimous vote regarding the TIF a week ago tonight. I think I can speak for the entire board. Well, if not, probably Tim Carl throws on that. So I'll give it a shot. But I think I can speak for the whole board when I say that we feel this is one of those occasions that it works for all the entities involved. That there just doesn't really seem to be a downside in this. And that it especially works for the people we all mutually represent. So I think that's the most important thing. And I think the board also feels that one of the reasons this is coming to fruition is the communication and cooperation on this has been outstanding through the whole process. All of our questions, comments, and concerns have been addressed on a timely basis. And we just felt like we were able to read through the whole thing. I'll probably leave out a few names, but the names we keep hearing that I think we want to commend are Fred Ernest and the Newark Development Partners, Mark Mauder, Dave Rhodes from the city, and then our treasurer, Julio Valadares. I think they've all done an excellent job of getting this thing through, and I think it's because of their efforts that I guess we're rounding third base heading for home. So thank you.
Thank you. Anyone else would like to speak for or against? Yeah, come on up. Take your time. Yeah, if you'll just give us your name and address for the record.
Amy Dahl, 215 Elmwood Avenue. I don't understand this at all. You know, what's gonna be done on my street to improve it? You know, I live on the dead end side of Elmwood Avenue, and it's awful. We have 2 street lights, no curves, and we're expected to pay this tip thing. I don't understand. So, you know, nobody's explained it to someone like me. You know, I don't know where the money will go, what it's going to be done. If there's been nothing. We don't have. When it rains, I have to jump a 3-foot stream of water to get to my husband's truck. When it's icy out, same thing with ice. In the 37 years we've lived there, we've seen 1 snowplow. You know, it doesn't seem fair to me that we will be paying this and still live the way we are in the street.
Okay. Thanks.
I'll address that in my comment.
Okay,
Okay. The next meeting is on the 21st of August.
yes.
No.
7 o'clock. Here.
Thank you.
For this.
No.
So for the 2 meeting. Yeah.
Anyone else like to speak? Anyone else for
I will.
or Mr. Mark?
Yeah. So first of all, I want to address, and put it in layman's terms, okay? So you are not going to pay any additional money because this is in place. Your current tax rates are right here, right now, okay? Next year, they're gonna automatically increase, the county will increase them. Every 3 years, I believe it is, yeah, every 3 years, they reevaluate. Now, there's a chance it could go down, but it historically has not. But more than likely, it's gonna increase. What's in between here is now not gonna be distributed the way the county currently does. It's gonna go just for the special project of the parking garage. You're not paying $1 more than what you would have if this does not go in place. But when your taxes do go up, that increased amount is going to be redirected, as the director said, or just moved to a different fund to pay for the parking garage. Okay, as far as your current situation, just talk to your council representative and the administration on that. That's a separate issue. Does that make sense?
Yeah.
Okay, and I could always talk to you after. It's fine.
Okay,
thank you. I'm gonna continue on with a little bit of what Mr. Blind indicated. I appreciate you coming and speaking. I want to thank the Newark City School Board. I agree that I firmly believe this is a win-win situation. The area in which this TIF is taking place should not increase the number of students that are attending Newark City schools. What it should do, though, is increase the average revenue for the area down here that we're trying to do in Newark, which increases Newark City Schools revenue because they're collecting 1% on all income tax. So I believe that what we're doing here is actually going to increase their bottom line as far as what they're generating in revenue. I also want to thank Julio. He's done a fantastic job. His emails, I mean, they just come fast and furious. So but I do appreciate what he's done. I also, one group and name that has not been mentioned yet, the Montrose Group, Nate, who's back here in the back. He's been fantastic. He's just kept us on track. He brings a perspective because this has happened in other municipalities and how they've worked it. He's even said, well, we need to ask this person this because we might need a legal opinion on what's acceptable and what's not. So I greatly appreciate his expertise and what he's put into this project. Newark Development Partners, they've worked hard. They've done a great job. Director Mauder, of course, has been involved in that, the mayor and Director Rhodes. This is something, and I indicated this in one of the meetings that we had. This is not something that should we do it. And as I really firmly believe that if we do not do these things and like this project, it will set Newark behind, because we're gonna grow regardless. And we need to make sure we stay ahead of that growth. The things that this group has talked about and they're doing, and the things that is stimulating other discussions that are taking place, that's what we need to be doing. We need to stay ahead, and we need to plan ahead. We need to make sure that in that planning that we have contingencies. If this doesn't happen, this is the direction we need to go. And I think that there's enough intelligent individuals that are moving forward with this, and this tip is just one of those things immediately that's happening. And this parking garage, it's being structured so then in the future, if we need to make adjustments or do things like have a charging station, there's enough capacity with the electricity. So it isn't like we're just putting something up that is only going to be useful for 5 to 10 years. We're looking down the road with this. So I think it's a great project. I think it's a great way to fund this. And again, it's not increasing taxes in order to do it. It's just whatever taxes do increase. If we have this parking garage, the land behind that's to the south of this building and on down south, now is more marketable for future growth, for future building, for increased taxes to stimulate even more revenue for all the entities that are involved. So I think it's something that's just going to jumpstart it, and I think that everybody should be in support of it. Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Marmy. Once again, the public hearing is still going on. Anyone like to speak for or against?
Hi, excuse me, I'm Tim Collins. I live at 535 Welsh Hills in Granville, but I own Minuteman Press in the building down here, 44 South 4th Street. I appreciate what you're saying about all of that. I just got a couple questions. What is going to be the total cost of the structure? Do we know yet?
I don't know. And this, you just have to give us your comment and we'll see.
Well, okay, so the questions I had were approximately how much is it going to cost? About how much revenue do we plan on getting for out of the TIF in a year, each year, and then approximately how long until it's paid off? Those are my main questions that I have for it. I think it's a good idea, but it just seemed like nobody's asked those questions yet. It seems kind of open-ended. So I'd like to know, approximate end date. Are we talking a year, 2 years, 5 years, 10 years? And because if we're saying 5 years and you're saying we get the growth that we all hope we get, we got to add 2 more floors on top of that. I understand it could extend and stuff like that. Or is that not in? Would it have to be revoted onto? So those are just my questions that I had.
We'll see if we can get you that answer.
Okay, thank you.
I can.
Come on, Mr. Marmy.
Yeah.
Maybe Mr. Marmy.
It's a 30-year TIF. Okay, so the TIF lasts for 30 years. Once the debt is paid off, if it's paid off in 20 years, then the schools get a portion of their funds back instead of keeping it at the current percentages. The other thing is that the tax increment financing, this TIF, is not the only mechanism funding that project. There are other things that are funding it. There's another area in the downtown that is going to pay special assessments to help to fund that. There's also some additional funds that are coming from different entities. So we hope to get it paid off. The question you asked about adding 2 floors, probably not something that is going to happen. And here's the reason why. If we need that much parking, we're not going to need it all right there. We might need it 3 blocks over this way, or we might need it 4 blocks over this way. Yeah, those discussions are happening, but we don't know that next step yet, but we're thinking about them already. It won't happen here though, because we don't want all the parking in one place. We might need to move it over this direction or that direction. So that is a good question, and those are being discussed, yes.
Thank you, Mr. Marmy. Again, it's not an additional tax, it's just a redistribution of what you're paying now, basically. Okay, last chance. Anyone else? Okay, we're gonna go ahead and close this public hearing. And again, this will be voted on 21st. Next on the agenda, we have comments from citizens. That's the time for you to let us know what you think. Again, this is not a question and answer period with council or a debate. This is just your opportunity to be heard. If you'd like to speak, please raise your hand and we'll bring you up somewhat in order. And just give us your name and address for the record. We're going to start with you, man.
Nancy Whaley, 7441 Stewart Road, Newark, Ohio. Good evening. I'm here this evening as a volunteer for Ohio Can Newark Homeless Outreach, as some of you probably know. I've been part of this organization for almost 5 years, and I'm still amazed at the work that we're doing each week. Unfortunately, in the past few weeks, we've lost 2 of our guests who are like family members to us and to the larger outreach community. These were 2 men who came to the outreach often. We mourn the loss of these 2 men and wish we could have done more to help them. As a community, we need to do more to help those who struggle with substance use disorder, who are unsheltered, and who have mental health issues. We know firsthand how difficult it is for people to navigate the system that we have in this area and other areas. Unless you have lived experience or you try to help somebody get services, you have no idea how difficult it is. I don't know how difficult it is because I don't have lived experience. At the outreach, we're seeing over 100 people a week. We saw, I think, 112 last Saturday. Some are unhoused, others who just need a meal or maybe some hygiene or non-negotiables. We're seeing more elderly. We're seeing more minorities. We turn no one away at the outreach. And I believe the reason that we're so successful is due to our consistency. We've not ever missed a Saturday in our existence. And I would challenge you to come up with another small nonprofit like we are to have that record. Last Christmas, when it was really cold, we had 4 or 5 volunteers down there that served 32 people that day. If we dropped food, it was frozen by the time it hit the ground. We have a huge commitment to our community. And due to all the facts that I stated, we also don't stigmatize those who might have substance use disorder, are unsheltered, or who are just the working poor. We at the outreach treat our guests with the utmost respect. And in turn, we receive respect back. We've never had to call the police department. We don't have issues at the outreach because people come and we love on them and they love us for it. We are sisters and brothers keepers. And the volunteers at the outreach are dedicated, caring individuals, some who are here tonight, who come together each Saturday to give back to your community and my community. We will miss our 2 friends and we send condolences to these men's families, just as we miss those we have lost the last several years. So in your prayers tonight, for those who pray, please think of these 2 gentlemen and their family. Thank you.
Thank you. Is that still Saturday, 10 to 12 at Buena Vista and East Main?
Yes, sir.
Okay, thank you. Anyone else? Trish?
Patricia Perry, 282 North 21st Street, Newark, Ohio. So Linda Mossholder has been coming here for quite some time and requesting opioid settlement funds to help offset our cost of fentanyl testing strips. And she was pretty harshly denied that. One thing I wanted to let y'all know is that we are providing fentanyl testing strips for the adult court probation department. Now, what's wrong with this picture? I mean, so, and we also have several churches, maybe even some of the churches that you all go to, that donate money every month for us to get fentanyl testing strips and other harm reduction supplies. But I wanted to make reference to a few comments that was made. One was, I am not going to promote anything that promotes the use of fentanyl or any other drugs in this capacity that I know of that creates unfunctionable individuals within our community. Number one, fentanyl testing strips do not promote drug use. They save lives, many lives. I don't know if you read the drug overdose tally for every year, but last year, 75 to 80% of the overdoses were meth cut with fentanyl. And each one of those people could be alive if they had a fentanyl testing strip to know that there was fentanyl in it, because people who use meth do not want to use fentanyl. Also, the other comment that was made is that by as far as legality of the drugs that you're talking about, they are legal, and I just can't support the use of fentanyl strips and the use of funds up here, our funds. No, I beg your pardon. They are not your funds. They are the funds of those people that have died to overdose and their families. When there was first talk of the opioid settlement money, I got emails, I got phone calls. They were like mothers mainly. Hey, is there going to be enough money? Maybe I could bury my child instead of having him in an urn sitting in my bedroom. Do you think I could get money for flowers to put on my family's grave? You know, people deserve this money. The people that it affects deserve this money. And people that are still out there struggling deserve this money. Everyone speaks of all the resources that we have here in Newark. It's not true. If you really are down in the dirt and doing what you need to do to try to help people, about a month ago, I spent 6 hours on a Sunday morning trying to help a young man. He had tried to commit suicide, and he had went to a mental health facility who sent him home in about 6 days. I called many agencies all around Ohio, and no one could answer the phone on a Sunday, which I have met with One Ohio, and they have told me that money from the opioid settlement can go to treatment providers so they can hire people to work on the weekends and maybe do intakes. But this young man, his drug of choice was meth. I got him some phone numbers, gave them to him, but by Monday he was in the wind. Now he sits in the county jail with a felony that'll probably get him in prison, where he won't get any treatment or any, help there. So all these agencies and organizations that tell you they give all these people help and they give them money and they give people rides to treatment, that's not true. Some of these agencies we've reached out to give somebody a ride to treatment who had somewhere to go. Oh, well, maybe tomorrow I could do it. Well, tomorrow never comes for many, as you see. Thank you for your time.
Thank you. Anyone else like to speak this first section? Hang on. Lenny, you can go next.
My name is Renee Andrews, and this is my first time attending here. I live on Essex Street. July 3rd was 5 years that I became a resident here, which makes me obviously a full-time resident. July 3rd was also 3 years ago, the day my brother was murdered by fentanyl. Same person, another person got the same drug, his was poisoned purposely. These people still walk the streets. I don't see anything being done except for these people who are exhausted. I'm from New York. I've been here 5 years and I feel like I've done more than, sorry, but any of you guys, because who are you? Why aren't you down there? Why aren't you seeing what we're going through? I don't understand. I'd like to be made to understand why you're not helping. And I thought I was told that something was very rudely said about our homeless people downtown, about them being a nuisance and an eyesore. Well, help them. There are people that were in the military, there are human beings, there are good people. Sit downtown at the Salvation Army and talk to some of these people. They're amazing. Has any of you ever lost somebody to fentanyl poisoning or drug addiction?
Because if you haven't, you don't understand. You don't understand the grief, you don't understand the pain, not just from my brother, who I lost July 3rd, 2020, or my mother's son, who found him in his bed. And we were treated so horribly by the police department. Horribly. It was disgusting. So I don't know what I could do, or where I could step, and I'm stepping wherever I could step to help wherever I can, because this is wrong. You want your town to have a nice new garage to bring more people in, help your people. I don't know, I'm not trying to be rude or disrespectful to any of you, but we need help. These are your people, not even mine, they're your people that are born and raised here, they need help. I shouldn't be the one who is a single mother on my own, hardly pays my bills, helping these people every single day. And I don't know them, but I love them because they don't get hugs, they don't get love, they get treated poorly and looked on like they're pieces of crap, and they're not. So that's just what I wanted to say. My brother, Forever 41, Patrick Dakin is his name, and this is his faith. Thank you.
Thank you. As Linda's coming up here, does anyone else like to speak this first section? Put your hand up. Okay.
Linda Mossholder, 224 Green Meadow Drive in Newark. I'm not going to repeat anything like other friends have said. But the other day I watched participated in an opioid project webinar for community leaders. There were over 200 people present on this webinar. Most of them were mayors, they were county officials, and the whole purpose was to talk about what we could do about the opioid crisis. A couple of takeaways that I had from that meeting, that in order to solve some of these problems, collaboration is required. We can't do it at the homeless outreach, we're a grassroots organization, but without the cooperation of government, private sectors, and others, this is going to continue. The opioid settlement funds, and I'm not up here with my proposal again, I know better, should be used to assist people affected by substance abuse disorder. The state, counties, and cities need to be held accountable for how this money is spent. During this webinar, the most important statement I heard for community leaders is lead with compassion, leave stigma behind. And I think that is an important thing to hear. Unfortunately, in our community, there's a lot of stigma. The Saturday after one of our guests died of an overdose was a hard Saturday for our guests at their outreach. And we had a lot of people who were very upset. One woman said, I just need to go and get some bad drugs because I just want to die, because nobody except you guys in this community cares about us. And we all gave her a hug. And then this last week, I heard another person who died. When you know somebody and you see them for 4 years on every Saturday, you really do have compassion for this young person. This is a disorder. It is not something people choose to do. As we know, the number of overdoses have increased in the last couple of weeks. We got notice of overdoses behind the Salvation Army and in some other places. Luckily, those people were revived. I go down to the outreach twice a day and we fill our naloxone box. For those of you who don't know, that's Narcan. Every time I go down there, the box is empty. So people are using it to save people. I would like to invite some of you just to stop by the outreach. We're there every Saturday from 10 to 12. Look at the faces of the people there. Talk to them. Just acknowledge that they are human beings. And then ask yourself this question. Are you willing to lead with compassion when making decisions about the opioid settlement funds? On a positive note, I would like to tell you a little bit about, we are once again doing a health fair at the outreach this Saturday. This is an example of collaboration. These agencies come at least once every 3 months and they provide services for our people. And the services aren't just to help the people who come to the outreach, they affect the whole community. It's Hep A testing, it's Hep C testing. And if we can keep this community well, the rest of us can stay well. I'll just give you this new budget, Pastor. Thank you.
Thank you, Donna. Anyone else like to speak this first section? Again, there's one other section after. Okay.
Hopefully I'll make my plain comments brief. Clint Eskins, I'm the gold unit rep for the police department.
Okay, are you done?
Huh? No, I'm gonna try to make it brief. Jimmy Farmer is the blue unit rep. He's out of town, was unable to be here, so we have some comments we'd like to make in regards to acceptance of the fact finders report that you voted on earlier. First of all, let me start by saying that our membership's honored and grateful for the continued support. This community, people in this community come up, shake our hand every day, and thank us for the job that we do. We're especially thankful for each and every one of you in here that says thank you to us and who are the elected representatives of the citizens who shake our hand every day. So first, I want to start with that. Tonight, you voted for the fact finders report mediated agreement between the FOP membership and the city of Newark. In general, as all private mediations go and contract negotiations go, there's good and there's bad with it. Overall, we think it's a good agreement. It's got a fair wage increase. However, there was a key area that we feel that both sides of the table failed. And that area is the recruitment and retention of officers. There are several issues that were left on the table, and those, like I said, are recruitment, retention, and also the need for more officers in our budgeted allotment. Currently, the police department sits at 70 sworn officers today. We will be losing an officer in a matter of, I think, a few days, if we haven't already, to a higher paying agency in Franklin County. We have another officer who will be retiring within the next month or two. That'll leave us down 5 from being fully staffed at 73 a short time ago. By the end of 2025, the reality of the police department is that we'll lose an additional 8 to 10 officers to retirements, and most of those will probably be the supervision staff who will move on or be eligible to retire at that point. So we have an issue coming up with being able to recruit people to come here. According to the FBI stats, average city has 2.5 or 2.4 police officers per 1,000 inhabitants. If you do the math, it'd be 120 Newark. By no means are we asking for 120 officers by any means. But we're saying that we need to look at the numbers of staffing. We really need to look at that. As far as this bargaining process went, we want to share some of that with you. In September 22 last year, nearly a year ago, contract discussions began with a few meetings, several days, a few more meetings, and far too much attorney to attorney conversation and deliberation. Looking back, we would have liked to have changed that. The use of traditional bargaining practices failed the city, and it failed our community, and it failed the membership to really get to the meat and potatoes of what we needed to do. In the final months, we became entangled in a non-financial issue regarding shifts. It's one of the things, patrol shifts are one of the things that really keep officers out of the agency when you compare us to other agencies. The training we're able to do, the work-life balance it provides, we felt was under attack. Obviously, through negotiations, we kept most of that, but it was one of those things that was a retention item that we felt was a very hard thing for us to have to deal with when recruitment and retention is such a key part of what we were trying to do in that room each and every day. So move on. During the face-to-face negotiations, there seemed to be a consistent message in the beginning of a common goal to address recruitment and retention, but primary recruitment. To the negotiations, the city and the FOP had agreed to a condensed wage scale during this process. By condensing the current wage scale from a 10-year scale, meaning that it takes an officer 10 years to meet a top wage, it was to bring it back down to where it'd be 5 years. And in doing so, actually not giving more to the more senior officers, but giving more by increasing the starting wages so we can become more competitive. We believe both sides had a good plan to help attract new candidates to this, to the Division of Police. Unfortunately, the shared idea was literally pulled off the table in the very last minutes of negotiations at fact finding. With this new contract, the certified officer in Newark will make $24.72 an hour, which is a good wage. I don't take that away. However, that same officer will take them to 10 years to top out. In contrast, our neighboring agency, the Heat, will start at nearly $1 more, $25.54 an hour, and in 3 years, they top out more than what our contract now will be. Certified police officer Pataska, of all places, if you know the history there and what their agency went through, they will now start at $27.15 an hour. Lincoln County Sheriff's Office, who is going into starting negotiations, is at $27.12 an hour for a starting officer, and they top out in 2 years. That's $2.40 more for a certified officer and over $5 an hour more for a new officer that needs to go to the academy. So our concern is that even though this is a good agreement, it will leave us severely limited in the ability to compete with our neighboring law enforcement agencies just here in Lincoln County. Not to mention Franklin, Fairfield, Delaware, and other central Ohio communities such as Zanesville and an out of contract move increase their salaries by 8%. City council members, Mayor Hall, directors, we're proud to serve this community. We truly thank you for the opportunity that you gave us to work here and serve this community. Over the next several weeks, we're asking not only for your support, but also for action as elected leaders of the city and our organization take up where we failed and help this community be fully served and protected by fully staffing us and helping us recruit the right officers to come here. So I respectfully thank you for your time, and I look forward to continuing to work with you. Thank you very much.
Thank you. Again, there's one other chance for citizens' comments after the legislation. We're going to move on to ordinances on the second reading. There are none tonight. Ordinance on the first reading, 23-23.
Ordinance number 23-23 by Mr. Rath, Mr. Barker, and Ms. Blind. An ordinance approving the editing and inclusion of certain ordinances and a resolution as parts of the various component codes of the codified ordinances, providing for the adoption of new matter in the updated and revised codified ordinances, repealing ordinances and resolutions in conflict therewith, and declaring an emergency.
Heard the first reading of 23-23, but it is an emergency. What is your wish?
Mr. President,
Mr. Rath.
let me make a motion to adopt 23-23.
Motion by Mr. Rath, second by Mrs. Bond. Is there any discussion on 23-23?
Mr. President,
Mr. Rath.
the reason we have the emergency clause on this is to meet publishing deadlines.
Any other discussion on 23-23? Seeing none, Janine, please call the roll vote.
Mr. Rath,
Yes.
Mr. Ryan,
Yes.
Mr. Barker.
Yes.
Ms. Blind.
Yes.
Mr. Shu.
Yes.
Mr. Harris.
Yes.
Mr. Hauser.
Yes.
Mr. DeBoer.
Yes.
Mr. Lang, Mr. Marmy.
Yes.
23-23 passes 9-0. Next, we have 23-24.
Ordinance number 23-24 by Mr. Rath, Mr. Barker, and Ms. Blind, and ordinance annexing certain territory generally described as being 0.871 acres, more or less, located in Newark Township to the city of Newark, Ohio.
23-24 is on its first reading. It will be held to our next council meeting on the 7th. Next, we have 23-25.
Ordinance number 23-25 by Mr. Rath, Mr. Barker, and Ms. Blind, and ordinance annexing certain territory generally described as being 2.035 acres, more or less, located in Newark Township to the city of Newark, Ohio.
And 23-25 on its first reading. It'll be held for 3 weeks till August 7th. Next, we have 23-26 on its first reading.
Ordinance number 23-26 by Mr. Rath, Mr. Barker, Ms. Blind, an ordinance amending portions of chapter 1068 of the codified ordinances of the city of Newark, Ohio regarding prohibited acts and prohibited possessions in parks and recreation areas within the city of Newark, Ohio.
And 23-26 is on its first reading. It'll be held until August 7th. Next on the first reading, we have 23-27.
Ordinance number 23-27 by Mr. Barker and Ms. Blind, an ordinance authorizing a moratorium on the processing or approval of any application for a certificate of zoning clearance, building occupancy permit, or any other permit or approval required under a section of the zoning code related to shipping containers, temporary structures, storage units, pods, and bins, as well as for vape and tobacco shops in the DC downtown district, of which are currently under review by the planning commission and city council by way of 22 and declaring an emergency.
Heard the reading of 23-27. It's on its first reading, but it is an emergency. What is your wish?
Mr. President,
Mr. Barker.
thank you, Mr. President. I'd like to make a motion to adopt ordinance -23-27.
Motion by Mr. Barker, second by Mrs. Vaughn. Is there any discussion on 23-27? Mr. Barker.
Thank you, Mr. President. This is an emergency because as it says in legislation, these items are currently under review by the planning commission. And we want to put a hold on any new changes that would be currently under discussion.
Thank you, Mr. Barker. Anything else on 23-27? Seeing none, Janine, please call the roll vote.
Mr. Rath?
Yes.
Mr. Ryan?
Yes.
Mr. Barker?
Yes.
Ms. Blind?
Yes.
Mr. Shute?
Yes.
Mr. Harris?
Yes.
Mr. Hauser?
Yes.
Mr. Labutus?
Yes.
Mr. Lang? Mr. Marmy?
Yes.
23-27 passes 9-0. And finally, on the first reading, we have 23-28.
Resolution, ordinance number 23-28 by Mr. Rath, Mr. Barker, and Ms. Blind. An ordinance accepting the dedication of public use of the plat and streets in the Overlook subdivision located off Cherry Valley Road.
And 23-28 will be held at our next meeting on August 7th. Next, we move on to resolutions on the second reading, 23-63.
Resolution number 23-63 by Mr. Marmy, Mr. Barker, Mr. Labutus, Mr. Rath, and Ms. Blind. A resolution appropriating monies for current expenses of the municipal corporation.
For the second reading of 23-63, what's your wish?
Mr. President, make a motion to adopt resolution 23-63.
Motion by Mr. Marmy,
Second.
second by Mr. Barker. Is there any discussion on 23-63? Seeing none, Janine, please call the roll vote.
Mr. Rath?
Yes.
Mr. Ryan?
Yes.
Mr. Barker?
Yes.
Ms. Blind?
Yes.
Mr. Shute?
Yes.
Mr. Harris?
Yes.
Mr. Hauser?
Yes.
Mr. Labutus?
Yes.
Mr. Lang? Mr. Marmy?
Yes.
23-63 passes 9-0. Kent, we're moving right along. Do I need to slow down a little bit? Or you all right? I'm just happy to see you here. Yeah, Mal is our advocate reporter, by the way. Next, we have 23-64.
Resolution number 23-64 by Mr. Shute, Mr. Labutus, Mr. Rath, Mr. Barker, Ms. Blind. A resolution appropriating monies for current expenses of the municipal corporation.
You've heard the second reading of 23-64. What is your wish?
Mr. President, I'd like to make a motion to adopt 23-64.
Motion by Mr. Shute,
Second.
second by Mr. Labutus. Is there any discussion on 23-64? Seeing none, Janine, please call the roll to vote.
Mr. Rath?
Yes.
Mr. Ryan?
Yes.
Mr. Barker?
Yes.
Ms. Blind?
Yes.
Mr. Shute?
Yes.
Mr. Harris?
Yes.
Mr. Hauser?
Yes.
Mr. Labutus?
Yes.
Mr. Lang? Mr. Marmy?
Yes.
23-64 passes 9-0. Finally, we go on to resolutions on the first reading, 23-65.
Resolution number 23-65, expedite by Mr. Marmy, Mr. Barker, and Ms. Blind. A resolution appropriating monies for current expenses of the municipal corporation.
23-65, Mr. Martin.
Mr. President, make a motion to waive the 2-day reading rule on resolution 23-65.
Motion to waive the 2-day reading rule by Mr. Martin. Second by Mr. Barker. Mr. Martin.
Thank you, Mr. President. We have, we created some new positions and things, but we did not have the funding in there, so we want to make sure that we get the funding in there right away, so that it can, we have enough to pay anything.
Thank you, Mr. Martin. Waiving the 2-day reading rule is not debatable. Janine, please call the roll to waive the 2-day reading rule.
Mr. Rath?
Yes.
Mr. Ryan?
Yes.
Mr. Barker?
Yes.
Ms. Blind?
Yes.
Mr. Shute?
Yes.
Mr. Harris?
Yes.
Mr. Hauser?
Yes.
Mr. Labutus?
Yes.
Mr. Lang? Mr. Marmy?
Yes.
2-day reading rule has been waived. Mr. Martin.
Thank you, Mr. President. Make a motion to adopt resolution 23-65.
Motion to adopt by Mr. Martin, second by Mr. Barker. Is there any other discussion on 23-65? Seeing none, Janine, please call the roll vote.
Mr. Rath?
Yes.
Mr. Ryan?
Yes.
Mr. Barker?
Yes.
Ms. Blind?
Yes.
Mr. Shute?
Yes.
Mr. Harris?
Yes.
Mr. Hauser?
Yes.
Mr. Labutus?
Yes.
Mr. Lang? Mr. Marmy?
Yes.
23-65 passes 9-0. Next on the first reading, we have 23-66.
Resolution number 23-66 by Mr. Marmy, Mr. Barker, Ms. Blind, and Mr. Ryan. A resolution appropriating monies for current expenses of the municipal corporation.
23-66 will be held to our next meeting on August 7th. And finally, we have 23-67.
Resolution number 23-67 by Mr. Barker and Ms. Blind, a resolution authorizing and directing the Director of Public Service for the City of Newark, Ohio to enter into a lease purchase agreement with Park National Bank for the lease purchase of 8 police cruisers for the Division of Police.
And 23-67 will be held to our next meeting on August 7th. And that gets into legislation. Thank you. Next is your second opportunity for comments from citizens. Again, this is not a debate or a question and answer period with council. This is just your time to be heard. We have anyone who would like to speak? If you just please raise your hand, I'll try to get you up in order. Ms. Smith? I know, sorry. You can tell everybody.
Good to see you.
Rochelle Bowman Smith, 237 Violet Court. I recently found out that not only are we having difficulty with negotiations with the police department and fire department, but a number of other departments, like the water department, have not had a contract for about a year or more. And it just surprises me that it's taking that long for the city to fairly negotiate with its amazing employees, and that they deserve better. Thank you.
Thank you. Anyone else? Linda? Anyone else while Linda's on her way up here, would like to speak? Okay.
Linda Mossholder, 224 Green Meadow Drive. I also forgot to say that I am a board member of Ohio CAN, which is Ohio Change Addiction Now. I think what we would like to know is what plans the city does have for spending of the opioid settlement funds, and who is going to be involved in making those decisions. We're just asking for some transparency and the ability to give some feedback. Thank you.
Thank you. Okay. Do we have any city officials this evening? Mr. Spurgeon.
Good evening, Mr. President. I just want to thank the council for its support of ordinance 2331. I want to thank the police division, but more importantly, all of our dedicated public servants who give their lives for our great city, and I thank this council as well. Thank you, Mr. President.
Thank you, Mr. Spurgeon. Mr. Motter?
Yeah, thank you. Just again, a reminder, I put this out in an email to all the council members. We finally received authorization to use our community development block grant funds through the COVID program. There are 3 specific qualified census tract areas in the city that we can do roof replacements for owner occupied homes. We put together a program flyer that answers basic questions and has answers. We have a map for qualified areas. And the best part is this is a no risk or cost program available to income qualified homeowners. No landlord owned homes would qualify for this program. So please spread the word in your area. Hopefully people are getting the message here through social media as well. And contact the community development office for any additional help or questions.
Thank you, Mr. Motter. Any other city officials? You know, Mr. Neely, I keep looking out there and I see you sitting between 2 police officers. I'm just thinking like handcuffs or.
Right up.
Law director of the board.
Hi, thank you. First of all, I do want to say that I am sorry for the loss that has been experienced by the homeless outreach. I can sympathize with that as a prosecutor, having been on the drug court treatment team. Whenever we heard of someone relapsing, whenever we had lost someone, we mourn. You get to know that person. You get to see them every Friday in drug court. And it was heartbreaking sometimes to see them after they have relapsed and to see their conditions. So I do understand. And as a city official, my office works very hard to address the drug issue. And of course, we only see them after they come into our office, after they've been charged with offense. But there can be good things that come from someone who may be in jail. They get clean, and then we can work with them, and they have a rational mind to work with us to figure out ways, how can we get you past this addiction? And I can speak for my office for sure, in that whenever someone with an addiction problem comes in front of my office, whether it's on domestic violence, whether it's an ODI, whether it's an assault, we try to address their needs, and our probation department, I think, does an amazing job in trying to give them resources to get help, but it's a choice that they have to make. But I can speak as a city official and say that every day my office works to help people with addiction. And I also wanted to remind people that the county, the Ohio One grant is going to be coming out through the county, so keep your eye out for that. And with that,
Thank you, Director. Mayor Hall.
I just echo everything, definitely our law director said, and our community development director and, Director Spurgeon, there's a lot of people that's going to do a lot of work for people with addiction and, work in a lot of different ways, but it does sometimes boil down to the individual. I want to thank the teams through the negotiating time. That's a lot of work, a lot of time that's been going on for a long time. It's two sides to that, and two sides can speed it up, or two sides can slow it down in different ways. So it's equal both ways. And then finally on the TIF, there's been months and months and months of talks and work to get to this point on that. And I want to thank everybody that sits up here as a council member to both for the FOP contract and also for the TIF language to approve those so we can keep moving forward. That'll pass.
Thank you, Mayor. Mr. Wright.
Thank you. I'll call a service committee meeting for August 7th, and then I'll pass.
Mr. Wright, you want to stand up once? I want to see what your new uniform looks like here for council. Would you like to stand up and spin around with your shorts on? Mr. Ryan.
I will pass that next year.
I wasn't gonna make you.
I was waiting for what's.
Mr. Parker.
Good to have you back, Mr. President. I'll pass.
Yes.
Ms. Swan.
It is good to have you back. And I too would like to thank all of our great safety forces. They were very, very helpful recently, as always. But there were some difficult situations that would have been probably taken a lot longer to handle had they not came. So I really appreciate them and their timeliness. And I'd like to congratulate our friend Ms. Shelby over there. She made a presentation to the Parks Department on the name change for what is presently known as East Street Park Town Commons. And so we'll get an opportunity to vote on that name change soon. So hopefully, we can get everyone's support on that. And I also like to thank our great community volunteers for the momentum they've been displaying. We've been working on 4 blocks of properties, making them easier to patrol for our safety forces, certainly cleaner, certainly bringing up the aesthetic values of the area. So we're about 65% there. And along the way there, it's also good because we do engage with our homeless population because they offer to help. And sometimes they just chat, which is normally the case, and that's okay. We talk. And we spoke about the recent loss. And it was interesting to hear their comments. And because I asked what they thought, what could we do better? And they were concerned about the availability of needles on the streets and how, it was so easy for someone to be able to, continue their addiction when they otherwise might not be able to. And that conversation more pointedly I had today with a gentleman while I was on 5th Street. I recognized him and I knew that he knew the gentleman who passed. And he had echoed that as well. And I thought that was interesting, that it's just good to hear that they have dialogue in the community. And I'd also visited with the gentleman's family who passed over the weekend. And they certainly are in a very difficult place. So I'd like to ask your prayers for them. But it's good. Among the homeless population, we've been having some very good conversations, and I think we'll start relating more. And with that,
Thank you, Ms. Bond. Mr. Shu. Welcome.
Thank you. It's nice to see you. Thus far, my years council, Jeff Harrison, my president. Nice.
There you go.
Put that on.
And I won't make you stand up either, but you thanks. Mr.
If you wasn't here, we'd all be home by now. But it's good. I'm glad you're back. Everybody here, I'm glad you're back. Without a pass.
Oh, Mr. Allen.
Thank you, Mr. President. It's nice to hear you make fun of someone else but me. It's time.
It's good to see you. I just want to thank Director Smart for verifying the right pass that is information on to a few people who I know will be able to utilize that. So I appreciate that. So go back.
Thank you, Mr. Allen. Mr. Lavertis. Mr. President, it's good to see you back. Thank you, Mr. Lavertis.
Just want to say thank you to Joe Paul and Jeff Hopkins. They were able to help me with some things over the past couple of weeks, and I want to thank you publicly. So I will pass.
Thank you, Mr. Lavertis. Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. President. Need to call a finance committee meeting for 3 weeks from now, August the 7th. I too want to welcome you back, and I am glad that Tracy is making amends. So it is good that you're back and she's getting healthier. So really appreciate you being back. Just a couple of comments. First and foremost, contract negotiations, the speed and the time it takes. I know it hasn't been a year, so I know that is not an accurate statement. But I do know that it's a two-way street as far as timing and how much time that takes. It isn't just the administration that would slow that down, and they have not done that. So, and then finally, I just want to talk about the men and women in blue. They just do a fantastic job, greatly appreciated. I really appreciate that you talk about negotiations instead of a fight, because that's what it's all about. And we really do appreciate the FOP coming to the table, willing to work, willing to negotiate. And that is just fantastic. And I'm sure that if there's things that we can do in the future to make improvements, we'll do just that. We'll negotiate it and we'll talk about it. And, it's all about being for the betterment of our citizens and the safety of our citizens. So I do appreciate the words that were shared. I appreciate everything that the men and women in blue do every single day to make sure that I can sleep peacefully at night. I am looking forward to September the 8th and breaking bread with my FOP partners and hitting that little white ball around. And I really am looking forward to that on September the 8th. And with that, I will pass.
Thank you, Mr. Martin. I guess, Mr. Harris, thank you for sitting in for me. I appreciate that. And I was so pleased this evening that we could pass the police contract. I think that was terrific. Since I've not been here the last few meetings, I guess I've had some time to reflect on some things. I've been on this council for 4 different mayors, 3 different law directors, 3 council clerks, and several council members. Several council members have come. I don't know what that says about me. Several council members have come and gone, except for Doug Marming, who's been here a little longer than I have. And I really do appreciate his leadership, and I do admire that. So thanks, Doug. I feel so blessed and privileged to have been elected and reelected to this position over the past 20 years. I hope you feel that I've represented all the citizens of Newark fairly. And we as a city and a council have accomplished so many positive things together that I'm not going to list them. But that being said, due to some family health issues and some other issues, this will be my last meeting tonight. I'd just like to thank all of you for your support that you've given me over the past 20 years. I'm sure Mr. Harris will take the reins and do a great job, but I will miss being here. So with that, and for the last time, I guess, is there a motion to adjourn? Motion by Mr. Marmee, second by Mr. Rath. All those in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Oh, same sign. 8:10. Adjourn.